Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will get started in just a couple of minutes. We should have some great hold music while we wait for people to join next time. All right, we're going to get started in just a minute. Hope you all have your lunch, maybe. You can sit back, relax. You're in great hands. Uh, we will be starting in just a couple of minutes. Thank you for the reactions. So, I'll go ahead and kick this off. Hi, everybody. My name is Tia Fleming. I'm the executive director here at the California Water Efficiency Partnership. And we are thrilled to have you all join us today for our webinar, Less Lawn, More Solutions. Um, this is a customer-facing webinar, which is not something that the California Water Efficiency Partnership usually does. We usually are catering more towards our membership, which is urban water suppliers across the state. And we have over 600 people registered to join us today. And so for that reason and for our sanity on our end, the chat is currently disabled. And we're going to be asking any comments or questions to go through the Q&A. So you'll see on the bottom of your bar, if you're unfamiliar with Zoom, there should be a Q&A button. There you can type in any answers that you have. We will be answering them throughout the presentation, typing. We have a great team behind the scenes right now, ready for your questions. And then as we have time, we will be able to answer some live questions as well, especially if we see some big trends coming in. We'll address those. And hopefully, by the end of this hour together, you have a better sense of what this non-functional turf regulation is, how it impacts you, and what your next steps may be in order to come into compliance. So, great. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's our agenda for today. So we are in the welcome. So just as a reminder again, we are here on Zoom. We're using the Q&A. And then yes, for anyone who is registered, this is being recorded. We'll also share the slides, and those will go via email to everyone who registered and will also be posted on nonfunctionalturf.org, nonfunctionalturfca.org. So shortly, I'm going to pass it over to my deputy director, Melissa Matlock, Dr. Matlock, as we sometimes call her around here. She'll be diving into what is AB 1572. We'll do a fun kind of back and forth of some examples of what non-functional turf looks like out in the wild. And then we'll dive a little bit into creating a replacement plan that works for you and how to find valuable rebates and incentives to offset costs. This webinar is being brought to you today by us at the California Water Efficiency Partnership, but only because we are in partnership with our friends at Southern California Gas Company. So at the end, we'll also be hearing from Carlo Gavina from SoCalGas, who will be covering some great rebates, water and energy rebates that are available in their region. So if you were joining us from north of Fresno or outside of SoCalGas's territory, that will be less applicable to you. Everything else we're talking about today is statewide. So thanks again for being here. Next. So here are your hosts. Again, Tia Fleming, Executive Director, Melissa Matlock, my Deputy Director, and then Carlo Gavina, Program Manager from Southern California Gas. Next slide. Just a little bit about CalWEP, I believe. So CalWEP, we are a nonprofit statewide organization. We're membership-based. Our membership is largely urban water suppliers. So there are about 400 urban water suppliers in the state of California, and over 215, 20 of them are CalWEP members. So we're super engaged with the water systems and the water agencies who are running, systems across the state. Next slide. Our mission is to maximize urban water efficiency and conservation. So we do this through a host of different research and programs. We run training programs for landscapers to train them on how to care for sustainable landscapes. We have some plumber training programs, really looking at how we as a state make ourselves more water efficient and save more water, both while we're in drought and when we're out of drought, because I think we're basically always going to be in drought or on the verge of drought. So next. So now I will pass it over to Melissa, who will be doing the bulk of the information sharing today. You're in great hands, and I'm going to hop backstage and I'll be in the Q&A answering questions as they come up. So Melissa, take it away.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. So we are really going to talk about AB 1572. Now, AB 1572 is, a law that was passed, and it prohibits the irrigation of what they call non-functional turf, or you'll see in slides, NFT, with potable water on CII properties beginning in 2027. So there's a lot to unpack there, but generally what this law applies to is irrigating. So you have to stop irrigating any what's considered non-functional turf or lawn with potable water for CII properties. So if you are a residential property, this does not apply to you. If you have recycled water, this does not apply to you. And if you have recreational use lawn areas, this does not apply to you. Diving into a little bit more, this law was actually adopted in 2023, but why? So as Tia mentioned, we're kind of in California always in a drought, and we were kind of thinking there needs to be a different approach to conservation, especially when it comes to the grass. And so legislation declared that the use of potable water to irrigate non-functional turf is considered wasteful. And it's really incompatible with the state's policy related to climate change, water conservation, and reducing reliance on kind of drought-prone ecosystems like the Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta area. So the legislature was really like, California needs to take steps to respond to climate change and the reality on water systems. And actually, the state of Nevada had AB 356 that they enacted in 2021 that prohibits the use of Colorado River water to irrigate non-functional turf. So there already was something that was done ahead of time. I saw a question in the chat that I'm going to actually address here is what is potable water? Potable water is actually kind of your considered treated drinking water. So it's what you see here is, if it goes into your house, most also have that same water going out into their lawn. And they think that there's a better use for drinking water to be able to support what you water in terms of your turf or your lawn. You're going to see here in these slides, we're going to use turf and lawn interchangeably. That's done very purposeful because sometimes turf can be a little confusing if it's like the artificial turf versus lawn is kind of the grass, the what we typically see on like soccer fields, stuff like that is what we're talking about here. All right, so what does the bill do? So it prohibits the use of potable water for the irrigation of non-functional turf. And I'm being very specific here with the language. It does not require you to take out your turf, your grass, and put in drought tolerant landscaping. That is not the requirement of the bill. The bill specifically says that you just need to stop irrigating anything that's defined as non-functional turf. These are for commercial, industrial, or institutional properties other than a cemetery. You're going to see this as called CII in the presentation. And it's also for common areas if HOAs, your homeowners associations, common interest developments, and community service organizations or similar entities. Again, common areas, not the front yards of individual residential properties in an HOA. Now, they did carve out a special kind of exemption. They do say that the use is allowed. You can continue irrigating your non-functional turf to the extent to ensure the health of trees and other perennial non-turf plantings. So they do care about the tree health in this aspect, and we'll dive into that a little bit more as well. In AB 1572, if you are ever bored and want to read legal information, they have quite a bit of definitions here, and I'm just highlighting a little bit. Functional turf is ground cover surface of turf located in a recreational use area or common community space. If any turf is enclosed by fencing or other barriers that don't allow humans to access that area, it's considered non-functional turf. Non-functional turf is any turf that is considered not functional. I know that can be a little confusing. It is using the definition in the term. But you can think of these as kind of street right-of-ways, parking lots, anywhere that if you look at it and you're like, Could you play soccer there? Could you do something fun there? If the answer is no, it's likely non-functional turf. And then recreational use area is an area designated by the property owner or government agency to accommodate human foot traffic for recreation. This can include sports fields, golf courses, playgrounds, picnic areas, pet exercise areas, if you where your animal goes to the bathroom. So this recreation can be formal or it can also be informal. So there actually is a phased implementation. So we said starting in 2027, but not everyone has to comply by 2027. The law was signed in 2023, and starting January 1st, 2027, those that the law applies to are basically kind of your state-owned properties, local government, and public agency properties. Now, if you are a public school, this does apply to you, your January 1st, 2027 deadline. What the legislation had thought when they put this together was lead by example. Let's have the government and the public properties do this first and show how it can be done, what it can be done, etc. Then January 1st, 2028, so a year later, the law goes into effect for your commercial, industrial, and other institutional properties. So that would be like your private schools. And then January 1st, 2029 is common areas of the HOAs or similar entities. And then if you are in a disadvantaged community and you're a public agency, so those that have that January 1st, 2027 deadline, if you are in a disadvantaged community, your date gets pushed back to January 1st, 2031, or if funding is available earlier. If you want to learn more about AB 1572, check out our website, and we've posted it in the chat for you. It's nonfunctionalturfca.org. The law also says that the State Water Resources Control Board, also going to refer to as state here on the slides, says that if there's a good cause related to economic hardships, critical business need, or any impacts to health or human safety, the state can postpone a compliance deadline for up to 3 years. This has not happened yet, but that's something that the state does have the authority to do. And one of the other things that we saw is that if you have quite a bit of non-functional turf or irrigated area, 5,000 square feet or more of irrigated area, you do have to actually certify compliance to the State Water Resource Control Board, which again, that's not us on this call. That's not your local water supplier, that is to the state. That method has not been identified how that's going to work, but you do have a couple years to do that. So if you have larger than 5,000 square feet of irrigated area, your CII properties need a certified compliance to the state starting June 30th, 2030, and every 3 years. Basically, this compliance is going to be that you are in compliance. If you have any non-functional turf on your property, you have stopped irrigating it. An HOA, or Common Interest Development Community Service Organization, needs to certify compliance to the state. Again, if you have more than 5,000 square feet of irrigated area, you'll do that a year later, June 30th, 2031, or until 2040, every 3 years. Now, I think one of the biggest questions is enforcement. What does this mean? So enforcement is going to look different for everyone, which can make that be a little bit complicated. The law basically says that a public water system, a city, a county, or city and county may enforce AB 1572. What does that mean? That's going to be determined on the local level. However, one thing I do want to highlight is that by January 1st, 2027, your public water systems do need to revise their regulations, ordinances, or policies governing their water service to include the requirements of AB 1572. So by this January 1st, 2027 deadline, public water systems do need to have something related to AB 1572 into their policies. And they are required to communicate that requirement to the customers that is applicable for. Now, one of the things that the state was very cautious about was they don't want to make sure that there's multiple enforcement. So if another entity wants to enforce, that's not the water system, they do need to notify the public water system to make sure that there's no double enforcement that's happening. And then at the end of the day, the state can also enforce. So it's complicated. Enforcement's going to be very different. And if you are interested in what that means for your service area or where you live and your businesses, what you will do is then contact your public water system, but be advised they might not have anything into place until January 1st, 2027. So one of the key takeaways that I want to talk about related to AB 1572 is that residential properties, cemeteries, properties with recycled water are not included in this prohibition. There is an irrigation exemption for existing tree health. The details of that are not really laid out. So again, that's up to the local kind of entities to determine what those carve outs look like. Although city, county water supplier can enforce, water suppliers are required to adopt ordinance resolution codes related to the prohibition. And AB 1572 defines what is non-functional. It's up to the water suppliers to implement those definitions in their code, as well as working with you to identify if you have functional, non-functional turf on your property. And it is the community members that have to self-certify. Okay, that was a lot of kind of legal language. And so wanting to help kind of make this a little fun and maybe a little bit more interactive for you, we're going to play a quiz game of what is non-functional turf. So I'm going to bring Tia back up and we're going to kind
Hey.
of have a little go back and forth here.
Yep. So I learn better by pictures for sure. So let's dive into some pictures.
All right. And you guys, I want you, if you're area where you can, shout it out to yourselves if you think this is considered NFT or not. All right. So Tia, what do you see on the screen here?
Homes, residential. This feels tricky.
So I think we see one in the first corner is looks like a single family home, and then down below looks like maybe it's condos or townhomes or maybe an HOA development, but it does look like it is the front yards of it. So do you think this is functional lawn or non-functional lawn?
Well, I think it's not applicable because this only applies to commercial properties and HOA common areas. So residential areas aren't part of it.
It's a trick question. Sorry, everyone. I threw that in there, but it's actually a question we hear a lot, trying to make sure to understand what this law applies to and what it does not. Again, AB 1572 only applies to commercial properties. Residential, even HOA residential areas are not considered as part of this prohibition. It's only HOA common areas. And next one. All right, Tia, what do you see on the screen?
Soccer field, playground, these absolutely serve a community function and are considered functional.
That's right. So AB 1572 is only applying to commercial properties in areas that are non-recreational. Recreational areas like parks are considered functional. All right, what do you see on the screen, Tia?
I see purple pipe, and because we probably have some non-water nerds on the phone with us and people who aren't steeped in this every day like we are, purple pipe generally means it's recycled water that's being used. Recycled water is not considered potable and is not applicable under this law.
That's right. So what you see here, if you see purple hydrants, purple pipes, the do not drink, this is recycled water signs, those are all examples of you likely have recycled water on that property, and therefore this law does not apply to those areas. All right, Tia, what do you see on the screen?
Oh, a classic median side of the road grass strip with a lot of trees.
Okay, so we see a lot of trees here. What do we think? Is this functional or non-functional, even though it has trees?
Well, I know I wouldn't want my kid playing on that turf next to the street. It's definitely non-functional turf, but because of the trees, there's got to be an exemption to keep them healthy and water them because tree canopies are very important to our communities.
That's very good. So we wanted to make sure we call this out. Even though it has trees, it's still non-functional. It's still determined as non-functional, but there is an exemption. So watering is allowed to continue to ensure the health of the trees, but it's only for existing trees and only where they are. So what we mean is, can you, Tia, make something functional by adding trees?
No, it's still non-functional turf. There's no way to make non-functional turf functional, especially, I mean, again, I'm not going to picnic or have my kid playing there on the side of the road.
Yeah. And so, again, it's only where the trees are. If you see on both images, I had made kind of red boxes. There is areas that obviously are not covered under the tree canopy, that is considered non-functional turf, and you would have to stop watering that or do something else with it to comply in order to make sure that you keep the trees alive. Stop watering would not be a good option for that area.
Hmm.
All right, Tia, what do you see on the screens here?
I see a fenced-in area that someone can't walk on. I see a lot of tree lawns. I see those strips of lawns next to gas station. It looks like this might be the entrance to an HOA community, where again, there's some turf there. No one seems to be using it. It's pretty ornamental. So it's non-functional. Sorry. I was like, what are we talking
Non-functional. Yes. So, again, using this opportunity on this quiz to kind of walk through what we're seeing so you can apply it to your properties as you go through. Again, there's literally a fence and someone's sticking their foot through the fence. Does that count as functional if they can put their foot through a fence? Still no, because they're not using it for recreational purposes. Again, thinking about it as like, can kids play on it, right? Like this little median that's in this HOA in the bottom right corner, you're not playing soccer on it. Cars are literally driving on either side. That's not safe for your kid to go. Same with kind of the other pictures here. One of the other things is really non-functional turf typically have maybe weird layouts. And so they're not really irrigated very efficiently. So you can see here on this bottom left picture, very small section. It's at a gas station. It looks like it could be a car wash with how much overspray is happening here. Right? This is a great opportunity to use water more efficiently and make this be something else. It serves no function other than to stop cars from driving across into that sidewalk. So you could put something different that was there. All right, Tia, what are you seeing here?
Again, this kind of looks like my HOA. I don't think it is though. But some random turf in a parking lot outside of a fence, turf along the street, again, little strips, hard to water, not serving a purpose, non-functional turf.
That is correct. And not only are they hard to water, but they're also hard to maintain. You can't take your ride-on lawnmower on these areas necessarily. So it's going to be a lot of manual maintenance to maintain these. So again, if you address sometimes the non-functional lawn, you're also addressing kind of inefficiencies in irrigation and opportunities to kind of maximize maintenance and lower costs that way. All right, Tia, what do you see on the screen here?
Looks like another entranceway. Again, some turf that's likely not being used for anything. The one on the right is interesting. It's a school. Obviously, turf at school, green space at school, something that's really important. But it does look like it's maybe on a hill. You know, I think especially for something like this, it's going to be really site specific. Only that school really knows how that is being used. My inclination is to say this is non-functional, but I would be open to a conversation with the school if they have a strong opinion the other way. Not that I'm the decider. Again, CalWEP, we're not the state, we're a nonprofit. We're just here to provide the education.
Yeah, kind of walking through again a decision process that you as the end user that has to abide by AB 1572, what this might apply for. So again, obviously the front, the left, the HOA looks pretty obvious that that's non-functional turf. The school on the right, it is a hill. You see that there's picnic tables around it, so it's not necessarily somewhere that they would use for where they eat their lunch. Typically, you're not playing soccer on that or doing anything because it is a hill. Kids probably walk across it all the time, but if a kid walks across it, does that make it functional? Still no. You know, if it's designed to keep them from walking on it and they just walk across it anyways, that's just how it's been used, but not meaning that it's actually functional or non-functional. Again, it is a local call, but these are thoughts that you need to have. And when it comes to you as a kind of end user having to certify to the state, you're going to have to walk through and justify these areas on your property. So these
Mhm.
are good things to look at how they're currently being used. Is that functional? Is not non-functional? And document it so you have some information to support your certification process.
Totally. There's absolutely really easy cases where you can tell if it's functional. right? A baseball field, a soccer field. But of course, there's going to be edge cases. And of course, there's going to be places that are used for multiple reasons or we don't know. And so I think that really reminding everyone that, you know, you know how turf is used in your property. And so giving these guidelines, it's really about making the call of whether or not it's just ornamental or if it's actually serving a function.
All right, Tia, what do you see on the screen?
Oh, more kind of weirdly shaped pieces of grass. Um, again, near parking lots, those are kind of throughout a campus. So my inclination is these are non-functional as well. Um, they're not being played or picnicked on necessarily. Someone brought up in the chat, maybe there is some community function for gatherings and they host events out there or whatnot. Okay, cool. I think that you can make an argument on the local level, but in general, if I'm seeing sloped grass, if I'm seeing weirdly shaped grass, if I'm seeing grass next to parking lots, if I'm seeing strips of grass, and it's watered with potable water, I'm gonna say that that's more than likely non-functional.
And I think one of the things that you guys have to consider when you're again doing this certification process is the state that you're certifying to, they don't see how it's used, right? They're just seeing maybe a picture just like we're doing here. So you need to help kind of fill in the gap and document it for yourself. You know your property. If you're like, oh, this grass is here, but every month we hold something at this grass. That's something that the state would not know. So document it for yourself if you're going to make something be determined as functional versus non-functional. I would also say that these are schools and that the grass we're seeing here are in front of the schools and in front of the fences of the school. So are there lots of times that that is going to be used during the school time? No. Again, if kids might walk across it as they're going from the parking lot to the school, but they should technically during the school time and during any times where there's activities be behind the fence. And so this is in front of it where again, is that safe for them to use this as a functional lawn, et cetera? Maybe not. So again, some considerations to think about as we go through. All right, that's the end of our kind of quiz. Hopefully you thought that that was fun or at least informative to kind of walk through a process of identifying whether or not this is non-functional turf or functional turf. So now we have AB 1572. We've learned about it. We saw some examples. What's next? So what do customers have to do? Came up with some like fun like kind of action words here. You need to identify, you need to stop, and you need to certify. So the first thing is identify if your property has NFT, non-functional turf, non-functional lawn. By your designated date, you must stop watering the properties with non-functional turf if it applies to you. The supplier and the state or the state, only one will typically enforce. They can enforce with fines up to $1,000 a day. So there is potentially a financial um, impact to not stopping watering your non-functional turf. Again, enforcement is going to be different for every area, and so that can be kind of confusing, and you'll want to learn early on what that enforcement looks like. But at the end of the day, the state is also the backstop. And then based on your designated date, large properties with over 5,000 square feet of irrigated area must self-certify to the state that you are complying. So what does that mean? If you stop watering, I think everyone's going to be like, well, now I've got brown and ugly, and what does that look like? So really, less lawn, but maybe this could be an opportunity for you. So, don't just stop watering, maybe start transforming. So considering that brown dead turf creates heat islands, degrades community appearance. I'm sure if you're an HOA, you're like, I don't want just brown dead grass in my area. My HOA members don't want that either. Abandoned turf can also harm trees and soil health. So you can consider using this as an opportunity to transform. Replace your decorative ornamental turf with beautiful low water wise landscapes that support pollinators, shade, and biodiversity. Save on your water bills and maintenance costs while enhancing property values and community pride, and contribute to climate resilience and long-term sustainability. This is an opportunity for transformation. The state came up with this law, and we're all going to try to do the best that we can with it while making sure that our environment and our community is not hurt by it. So when we talk about this, you know, we have this law, we know what we have to do, but what can we do? So we're going to talk a little bit about solutions for you as you kind of get started here. Creating a replacement plan. So when you want to create something into grass, you don't want it to be dead, you have an opportunity for more beauty. So when you are looking at how to transform your property, we kind of identified 7 steps here. The first step is really encourage participation in education. Talk to your community. If you're an HOA, talk to your community members in terms of what looks good, what doesn't look. If you have an opportunity, I saw some things in the chat, but really kind of ex- explore alternative supply options. Does your service area have recycled water? Can you do stormwater capture? Are there opportunities to leverage those other water supply sources? Replace your non-functional turf with climate appropriate landscape. Prioritize climate ready tree canopy for cooling and water savings. Implement smart irrigation systems on your property. Again, making sure that you are saving water. Maintain your landscape inventories to track compliance with AB 1572. And work with local water agencies to align irrigation policies with your municipal conservation goals. So, again, your water suppliers are there to help. And it gets started now to figure out what you have, what resources are available, and a lot of them also have design guides, et cetera, to help you with this process. Now, budget can be a big thing. So we probably have a lot of DIYers here, do-it-yourselfers, and in-house projects. Maybe there's an opportunity if you have landscape maintenance staff, you could use them to help with kind of removing the turf or adding in any type of landscaping. Maybe if you're an HOA or a school, you can do a community volunteer event and maybe partner with local nonprofits to see if they can help you with volunteers or getting the installation. There's an opportunity to do bulk purchasing. Now, the law says what is considered a grass that complies with the non-functional turf. So there are grasses that are actually native, and you could reseed your area with native grasses and comply. You can use very low water use plants and trees. Sometimes there are tree giveaway events. Sometimes there are free mulch giveaways that you can partner with to get kind of free resources. Also, our idea is, look around and start small. A lot of areas in the state have rebates or incentives. That's irrigation rebates. Maybe it's controllers or nozzles. Maybe there's even rebates to take the turf out and replace it, a dollar per square foot type of activity. Um, so, what you want to start doing is really start now and start planning while funding is available. Agencies have limited budgets. Um, this is when you're going to have an opportunity to really find out what's there. And what you want to do is look into these programs and get your applications in before you start. So you want to be able to understand the rules and requirements from any program you participate in. Some of them require you to have live grass before you take out the grass. Um, and if you have it dead and then apply, you might not be able to qualify and you might miss out on those rebate dollars. And what we also suggest is taking a phased approach, maybe doing pilot areas, convert your high priority areas first, phase out your turf over time, doing a small pilot area in like an HOA to be like a demonstration garden. This is what it looks like. This is what it's going to look like long term, and get that buy in there as well. And start with low cost conversions and conversations. Now, if you check out our nonfunctionalturfca.com. We actually have a non-functional turf compliance portal. You type in your address and it will actually pull up the rebates in your area that we could gather from different water suppliers. It will also let you know if your water supplier has adopted anything related to AB 1572. Again, it's not required until January 1st, 2027, but some have adopted things. So you'll be able to identify there. It will also pull up a map of your property, and you can actually start mapping out the grass areas so you could see how much maybe non-functional turf you have on your property. And then it will link to any rebates if you have it. Now, we did see some things about trees, and protecting your existing trees during any removal is really important, especially protecting the tree roots. You want to make sure that you are watered deeply and infrequently to encourage your deep root growth. Frequent surface watering, which is typically what we do with grass, actually encourages shallow root systems. Around the trees, you want to mulch. You want to supplement irrigation for trees during your transition from the turf watering. What we also suggest is adding trees to your property during the replacement. Consider drought resistant native trees. There's a lot of resources on trees. And again, these slides are going to be available with these links. They're also available on the nonfunctionalturfca.org. But California Native Plant Society has a great list. They have Calscape, which talks about all the different plants that are available and trees and everything kind of native. Cal Fire has a tree planting and care guide, especially if you are maybe in a urban fire interface type of area, knowing what is allowed there in terms of whether or not you should do mulch, whether or not you should have certain trees, how close they should be to your property, etc. And Cal Poly has an urban forest ecosystem institute also talking about trees that are great for this. Now, when you're doing this and removing your turf, you want to make sure that you're looking at your irrigation system. Maybe it's being able to switch from overhead spray to drip irrigation, installing weather-based irrigation controllers to adjust watering schedules based on whether or not you're getting rain. I actually think this weekend, like the entire state of California is getting rain. So this would be a great example of where those kind of weather-based irrigation controllers can help. If you can't switch to drip, they do have opportunities to just kind of switch out the nozzles of your irrigation system. So you can switch to high efficiency or add some pressure regulating devices to prevent overspray and runoff. You can check for leaks and adjust your watering schedule seasonally. And some actual water agencies also have landscape audits. So you can have them come out to your property and check out your irrigation system and give you updates on how you need to fix that or adjust. And then some do have irrigation system rebates available. And if you're interested in irrigation best practices, EPA has a link for their water sense, which does talk about irrigation best practices and how to kind of maintain these and these type of landscapes long term. The other thing you want to be doing is if you're doing a turf replacement is consider native, select the right plants. So what you want to do is look at drought tolerant and native species. Native species generally require less water, plus they support local wildlife. Native plants are also more likely to be fire resistant, especially in the wildfire prone areas. If you want something that's really low maintenance and easy and looks like grass, there are ground covers that do that. So we've got some images here on the right of different ground covers that will keep kind of the low volume, less maintenance, likely not having to have weeds pop up, that you can have less watering, but then still meet the requirements of AB 1572. Again, if you're interested in any of these type of resources, you can look at Cowscape, which with their native plant finder, and the water use classification for landscape species. Their website as well has resources for types of plants to use. Now, if you like grass and you want to keep grass, there are options for you. So, typically, what we see in our grasses and our typical lawns are non native turf grass. So, they originally come from Europe, Asia, or subtropical regions that have a lot of water. And they need a lot of water. They are fast growing, but they also have high maintenance needs. So you have to constantly reseeding, figuring out why they're dying. They get, during the variable summers that we have and temperature changes in California and our wet seasons, um, these grasses are just really poorly adapted to it. There's less drought resilience, and they really don't support any biodiversity. They can actually be kind of harmful to soils. Now, if you were to switch and go to native grasses, you want to look at those that are from the California ecosystem. They are typically low water use. They don't grow very high, which means they have very low maintenance needs. They are very well suited to California's dry summers and wet winters and the variable precipitation events that we can get. Therefore, they are very drought resilient and they do support pollinators and beneficial insects. And so you can see here, you've got your grass on the left. If you want your grass on the right, that's another option that you can do. And again, requires less water and less maintenance. What you can also do is, look at different elements to add to your property. So that could be looking out plant beds, looking at kind of pathways that allow water to filter through. Consider if you're in a fire area, fire-wise buffer areas, mulch and rock gardens, bioswales or rain gardens, low water use ground covers. And California Water Efficient Landscaping Guide from DWR has great resources on how to incorporate these features, as will a lot of water agencies in your area. And we also see here all these kind of links and stuff are being popped into the chat. So again, thank you to our behind the scenes CalWeppers here that are populating with resources for you. Now, changing out your landscape could require needing some special expertise there. So there are support for you. There are a lot of organizations that do training for landscapers and have a list of qualified landscapers that know how to do water-wise landscaping. So some are the Qualified Water Efficient Landscapers, Irrigation Associate, California Landscape Contractors Association, EPA WaterSense Irrigation Partners, Water Efficient Landscape Dual Certification Program, and even certified arborists. So a lot of these are also great ways they have lists of those that are certified to find someone that's qualified to help you. And when we talk about this and you have, maybe 1 or 2 years to start implementing, there are benefits to keep in mind. And so what we suggest is a gradual transition plan. I think one of the things that we hear a lot is, you take out your grass, you put in lawn or your alternatives, and you're like, wow, this looks bad. Why does this look bad? My community is not going to be happy that I did this. These plants do take time to settle and grow. They do have to come to size. They need to kind of sustain themselves. You're usually getting smaller plants that have to grow, maybe 1 or 2 feet larger. And so one of these things is create a demo area now, someplace small that you can get these plants in. And then in a year, you can point back to it and be like, look at this now. It's grown, it's beautiful. This is what we're looking for. This is the long term view that we have. And again, when you're talking to your community, I highly engage active community participation. You can talk about that it's going to lower your water bills, it's going to require less maintenance. You're changing these previously unused spaces into something that is beautiful, diverse. Maybe you can make them be something usable depending on where it is. They're going to be eco-friendly. Right now, there are rebates and grant programs available for this type of work. That's not always going to be the case. We suggest you start small, you provide visuals, and at the end of the day, this will also be a way to comply with AB 1572. All right, I'm sure you're tired of me talking, so I'm going to pass this over to Tia now to talk about what you're probably interested in, the money. Where
Oh,
is the money for this?
oh gosh, where's the money for everything these days? Let me tell you. Hi everybody. Great to be here. So as I mentioned, this is we are able to put this on for everyone. Um, with our partnership with Southern California Gas Company. And so first, we're going to talk a little bit about the specific rebates that are impacting non-functional turf, what's available for you, and then we'll hear a little bit from SoCal Gas around both water and energy efficient rebates that they offer as well within their service area. So next slide. Melissa had mentioned too that we have on non-functional turf ca.org under make a plan or check local guidelines, whatever that might be. Go ahead and put your address in there for the property you're interested in. In there, it'll pull up what we think is the best available information for rebates that are available for your properties related to non-functional turf, as well as compliance. So if your local supplier has passed an ordinance, resolution, et cetera, it'll be there. Again, they're not required to pass those until 2027, so keep checking. But again, this is a great place to start. And if nothing else, it'll tell you who your water supplier is, and it'll link you to their site so you can contact them directly to find out more. Next. And since this is a Southern California Gas sponsored, partnered webinar, I wanted to flag that Metropolitan Water District, which as you can see here covers a very large portion of Southern California, is the wholesaler, right? Has kind of brings all the water into California for you. Check out bewaterwise.com. This is some of the highest rebates that I've seen in recent past, largely grant funded and funded by Metropolitan Water District, eligible for $7 a square foot. There are actually additional rebates too if your local water supplier adds on top of that. So now is actually a really, really good time to take advantage of rebates. I am not a public water supplier, but what I can tell you from working in this world is that as things become required, rebates tend to go away. And I'm not saying they're all going to go away because we definitely want to continue to encourage this kind of expansion into sustainable landscapes. But for example, toilets, right? We used to rebate toilets all the time, but now you really can't buy an inefficient toilet. It's harder to find an inefficient toilet. And so a lot of toilet rebates are going away because the codes and standards changed. So it's something to think about in your planning. Take advantage of what's in front of you right now and really take action. Next. And so I think where I'm going next is I'm going to pass it over to Carlo to talk a little bit more about what SoCalGas is doing in the water and energy world. This will be a little pivot away. So while Carlo is talking, I promise our team is we have 54 answered questions in the chat in the Q&A box right now. We have about 50 open questions. We're not going to have time to answer them all live today, but we are going to do our best to get as many answers in. So Melissa and I, as soon as we go off camera, we're jumping into that Q&A and we're going to be trying to answer. I'll say that we can likely post the Q&A as well, along with the slides, along with the recording. And then as you have more local specific questions, we'll ask you to either check out nonfunctionalturfca.org or you can always contact your local water supplier. So, Carlo, let's do camera on, mic on, get you in from back behind stage.
Can you guys
And
hear
as
me?
We can
yes,
hear
hi
you.
Carlo.
Oh, sorry.
You have
We
a
had some
video or no
technical,
video? Or are we just going to have a radio hour with you?
just do the radio. Had technical difficulties in the morning, so
Perfect.
I,
Okay. You got about 10 minutes, so dive on
oh,
in and we'll be over in the Q&A.
it's going to be less than that, but
Amazing.
yeah. So I'm Carlo Gavina. I work for Southern California Gas Company. So I lead our sustainable team in the energy efficiency group. So my team members, I think they should be in the call, but one of them is Gus, and the other one is Elizabeth Medrano. So they're your main contact for my group when it comes to energy efficiency and water efficiency programs within Southern California Gas Company. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about SoCalGas. Pretty much, we have a big territory. We have about 20,000 square miles. Our territory goes all the way up to Visalia, San Luis Obispo, of course, LA, El Centro, and Blythe. We actually have a tool from Eagle Aerial that we're working on to kind of figure out the water agencies within Southern California Gas territory. So that should be up and coming. I know CalWeb and Eagle Aerial has a good relationship, and they actually have a version of Land Viewer that members can actually view. Hopefully, you guys can be members or are members already, but if you could do that, that would be awesome. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we actually do is actually partner with certain water agencies to co-implement programs. One of those programs is our Residential Advanced Clean Energy Program. As you can see, we actually partnered, for this example, we partnered up with City of Glendora. We actually changed their high efficiency toilet, their low flow shower heads, their irrigation water controllers, either 16 zone or 8 zone. We changed their smart hose bib controller. We also changed the aerators for the bathroom and kitchens. So that is a joint program that enabled us to look at our single family residents when it comes to water and energy savings. We also have a community language efficiency outreach program. Pretty much what they do is they do direct installs for different measures, also for gas and water measures, but they actually do it in different languages, such as Spanish, Korean, Vietnamese, and sometimes Farsi. So I think that's certain things that we can look at when it comes to the hard to reach and disadvantaged communities. Next slide, please. The other program that we have in common is that we have energy efficiency starter kits, which allows us to do aerators and shower heads, but also kind of gives us the ability to give marketing materials to certain single family residents. I think it's a good entryway for residents to actually look at the energy and water kind of relationship when it comes to rebates. Next slide, please. We also have multifamily programs that actually look at different measures such as water heaters, boilers, tankless water heaters. This is pretty much for apartments, common areas, a lot of HOAs, a lot of mobile home parks that actually use our rebates. We actually do a lot of stuff with LADWP, Metropolitan Water on the multifamily area. So hopefully we can partner with the water agencies that are here today, but also if you're an HOA, we do have specific rebates for you guys. Next slide. We also do non-residential programs. So this is one of the examples that we have. It's pretty much our K-12 program. Last time we saw the list of attendees, there's some schools that we do have specific programs for K-12, but also we actually have specific measures that actually is cost pretty much free. We actually do a self-install for a pre-rinse spray valve, and also about five faucet aerators that we actually give out for free. And then next slide. Then we have another example. It's pretty much our small to medium commercial direct install. So we pretty much do water heaters, we do for food service, we do pools, but I think where it kind of hits the soft spot for you guys is that we also do water measures. Pretty much we look at the laminar flow restrictor valves. That's usually for the healthcare industries. We do aerators and shower heads, but also we do pre-rinse spray valves. So I'm going to give it back to Tia. Thank you guys for having this. And I think this is a good way for us to kind of partner up with different water agencies and also HOAs. So I'll give it back to Tia. Thank you.
Okay, there I'm unmuted. Thanks, Carlo. Appreciate you and really appreciate SoCalGas's partnership to support our work in making these kinds of educational resources possible. All right, we're down to 39 open questions in the chat. And again, we're doing our best to answer them and we'll continue. There's a lot of questions around HOAs in particular. Encourage you, I think we're getting the same question over and over again, to look at the answered questions. We've answered quite a bit about HOAs in terms of what we're reading in the legislation, how a common area is being defined. And again, some of these are gonna, you might need to seek legal counsel on if you're still unsure. But my best advice is to look at the definitions and really think through, in the spirit of the law, in the intent of this law, is this non-functional? Is it functional? I saw other questions in the chat asking, is there a way to send a picture and someone can help decide? And unfortunately, that's not how this has been set up. Again, we'll plug on nonfunctionalturf.ca.org, especially under the HOA section. You'll see we have everything from kind of step-by-step checklists. So you can look at a piece of property and say, okay, is this this? Is it this? Is it used for this? Is it used for that? To help you sort through that way. In the HOA resources, we also have things like template newsletters for your, educating your residents. And we have some case studies that show what's possible. So I really do encourage you, if you're on this call, if you're a property, if you're still confused, go to nonfunctionalturfca.org. Look through the resources, especially clicking on kind of what property type you are, and you can really find a lot more there. Um, Melissa, anything else to add? I do have one more thing actually.
Yeah. You know, one thing I want to point out is we do have a survey, and so we're going to put that into the chat as well for you guys. But if you found that this was valuable, if you want a part two or things like that, like this is a great opportunity to let us know. But generally, what we were seeing is a lot of questions about what is this. Some won't make decisions until 2026 in terms of local water agencies, 2027 in terms of how they're going to apply for this. And so that's where CalWIP kind of came in. As Tia mentioned at the beginning, we are a water agency, primarily member-based organization. And so we saw this need for kind of this statewide guidance. That is where kind of the nonfunctionalturfca.org came from and some of the resources. So there is a quiz, there is HOA kind of questions, specific frequently asked questions for you guys to be able to get resources. All of this, the webinar, the Q&A, stuff like that, that's all going to be posted on that website as well. Stay tuned to that website if there is a part two. If you're interested, we'll make sure to contact you guys about this. But while we're in the beginning, there's still going to be a lot of gray area, and just generally, it looks like that there's some questions on how to just identify if you have non-functional turf or not.
Yep. So it's going to keep going. Some housekeeping. If you are here and you registered, along with everyone else who registered, we'll be sending you a follow-up email later today. In that email, you'll have a link to the recording that you can share with anybody. You will have the slide decks in PDF form. You will have all of the links that we shared in the chat during this. And we'll also try to download the Q&A so that you can search through that and see if maybe some people have similar questions. We also have our website. It has FAQs, etc. So we'll keep doing it. I want to give a shout out to an unsung hero, Krista Guerrero, who's been in the background. I think she's probably fully broken out in sweat, having rapidly answered so many questions. She's from the Metropolitan Water District and has been a huge resource for us and for everybody on non-functional turf. So just a huge thank you to Krista. Melissa, thank you for sharing all of your information. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope we were able to provide some clarity. And please do fill out this survey. Let us know if this is helpful. Let us know if you'd like us to keep, producing kind of educational content. We're here to help, and we will do what we can to make this as easy as possible for everyone to comply so that we can build a more resilient California together. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.